Okay, so let's do a quick recap on what we've done in the last video. Just quickly, we created a web API. Now, out of the box, if you use the latest .NET Core 3.1, it will generate the weather forecast controller for you automatically. And that just returns random numbers on the API. I'm not going to go into detail. If maybe in a later video we can spend a lot more time on APIs. So this is what we created. We added the Docker files. Okay, so we added the Docker file, and we changed the envelope to ASP.NET Core URLs to allow for that port to work. And the next step, what we've done is on the Azure DevOps platform, we uploaded, we pushed all the code up onto the Azure repos, and you should have this. If you don't, go back to the previous video. If not, you need to follow that steps to be able to get to this stage here. The next step, what we want to achieve, is a build and a release pipeline to Azure. Now, I apologize for being a little bit late. What happened is I wanted to create a personal account on Azure, but there's an issue, so I've escalated that to support. So I'm still using my student account. So apologies for being late. So if you are on Azure, dev.azure, if you got your account created, I showed you that in the previous, you can go here. But we also need, in this video, we're going to show you how to deploy just to an app service on Azure. Okay, so you need to have an Azure account. You can create a free one. If you are a pay-as-you-go customer, there is a lot of free options that you can test Azure on. I use my student account because I don't have the my personal account created yet. There was an issue with the verification of my mobile number. So go to Azure, Microsoft Azure, and you always need a resource group. So you always need a resource group to work on. I created one for the DevOps one. I had previous ones there as well. And it's just easy to just create. I'm going to add one now just to show you how to do that. You can call it anything, DevOps, apps. And I'm going to choose the closest one to me, which is Northern Europe. Next, you don't have to create tags really, and DevOps, and you just say create. Because I've already got a resource group, you can use your resource group for many applications. You don't have to have it only for one application, but if you want to have a separate one, you can do that. But I'm not going to create a separate one. You just click create and it will create it for you. And this is the resource group that you will use inside your DevOps pipeline. The next thing that you need to do is create, what we're going to do, we're going to deploy our web API to app services, to Azure App Services. So you need to have an app service. So you click on App Service and you select App Services, and you need to create a app service. Otherwise, there's no way to deploy to. So this is the first thing you do after you've created your resource group. Resource group, you need to select your resource group, and mine is testing DevOps. And let's call it Weather API Service. You can call it whatever it wants. It needs to be unique. And we're going to create, I'm not going to use Docker right now. I'm just going to just deploy the code to Azure and run it and see if it works. tech stack that I'm using is .NET Core 3.0. The 3.1 do not have the Windows deployment, so you need to use 3.0. And you can see you can have a Linux or Windows. We selected Windows operating system, and I want to have it. You need to make sure that your resource group, that this app service runs in the same region as your resource group. So where is Northern Europe? Okay, so just click on Create New. This is the Windows plan. You can call it anything you want. I'm going to create a new one because my old one is not going to work for this purposes. Let's call it Weather API plan. And you'll see that it automatically goes to standard S1. You don't want that, because if you use standard S1, you're going to pay a lot of money. Just say change, and then go to, because this is just dev test, it's not, you see you can pay a lot of money. You need to read all of this on Azure. So go to dev test, and you're just testing at the moment. F1 is the free one. If you are going to have an API you want to share or whatever on a testing environment, then you can use these, but I would just recommend free. And apply. And you can click next, monitoring. So the application insight will give you a lot of good information about your web API response times, how many times it was clicked, and things like that. But that's more for a production environment or maybe a testing environment if you want to test your response time. So I'm just going to put that no for now. Next. I'm not going to create any tags. Next. And then make sure you've got the free SKU here and click create. And that will then deploy my my services for me. Okay, so my resource is complete, and I'm going to go to the resource. Just make sure everything is up and running. So this will be your URL that your API will run under. What's nice about Azure, will give you like a domain name. It's not a real domain name, but it's just a name that you can use for testing purposes. So mine is up and running. And now the next step is to go back to DevOps. Okay, let's go back to our DevOps, and we need to create our first pipeline. You go to Pipelines and you click on Create Pipeline. Now, I just want to warn, I've used this several times. I like to use the classic editor. You can use something out of the box if you move like this, but it's this will create stuff for you. I don't like that. I would rather use the classic editor. It's just a little bit easier to use. You have more control on what you add to your pipeline. But the first thing we want to do in our build pipeline is to build, test, and package our web API. Go to continue. Okay, so now you select the template. So what we have is a .NET Core application. We're not going to never deploy from your build process. You only deploy from your release process. So we would just want to package it, build it, test it. We've got a ASP.NET Core application. So this is the one you're going to select. It will automatically create a agent job for you. The agent job, you need to, you can have a pull or just leave it as is. Don't make any changes. On the restore, this will just restore your application for you. So what's nice about this template, this will restore, build, test. If you've got anything in your code for testing, we haven't created unit test yet. We'll do that in a later video. But this will automatically look for the test projects and run the test project for you. and then when it's done, it publishes to a output build artifact staging directory, and that directory will be available in your release pipeline to release it to your Azure App Services. This will publish that artifact. So first restore the code, build the code, test the code. Because we've selected the repos from the beginning, this will take all that code, and it will restore it, build it, test it, publish it, and make it available. This is the first thing we want to do. So I'm just going to save in queue. We call it new weather API app. And the agent we select here needs to be Windows. So it's Windows 2019. Save and run. And you'll see your agent job will automatically queue. If you click on it, you can see as it runs what is going to happen next. So let's hope everything is fine without problems. And I might speed up this video. Okay, so you can see everything is complete. Everything is green, which is good. You've got restore, you've got build, test, publish the artifact, and a post check. So all of that in your template is added automatically. Okay, so let's go to releases. If you click on the release on the left, we're going to create a new pipeline. What I'm going to do, the best thing to do is create an empty job. I'll show you now the reason why I want to do that. Create an empty job. And then you can name it anything you want. I'm going to name it staging. And you first want to select the artifact, which is your package that was built by the build pipeline. So you add an artifact. You say build. You can also take it from repos or from GitHub or from TFVC. I would just say you need to have the build process first, so you can run your unit test and everything like that first before you release this. My project name and my source here is the source code that was built by the build pipeline. And you add that, and that will add it to the artifacts. You can have multiple artifacts that you want to deploy. We're just going to do one for now. There's also a continuous deployment trigger here. This trigger, if you click on it, you can enable this trigger. So when the build process has completed successfully, if you enable this will then trigger this and automatically deploy for you, run the release for you. You also have a pre-deployment conditions. I'm not going to go into that right now. We want to configure our staging job. So we'll go in one job here. So we've got an agent. We need to select the correct the platform here. I think 2017 will work, but I use Windows 2019. That should work. And then you click on the plus here, add a new task to this agent. You can see there's a lot of things in Azure that you can use. I'm just going to do deploy. We just want to deploy right now. And I'm going to use Azure App Service deploy. So we're going to deploy to that app service we create on Azure. And say add. And then click on the task itself. Then there's several things that you need to change here. You need to make sure that you authorize your subscription on Azure to the DevOps pipeline. You can go and manage it in here if you click manage. That will open up some of your subscriptions that's already on here. You'll see I've got my student account here. I'll hide this. Go back to your release pipeline and you select your subscription. If you haven't done it, say for example you create this, you need to then click on verification of this account. You might want to create a certificate to allow this account to be connected to your Azure DevOps pipeline. So I'll show you where to find that certificate. Okay, let me quickly show you where to find that certificate. Project settings. And you go to service connections. And you want to create a service connection. I've got it already done, but let me show you. New service connection, Azure Classic. You see there's a lot of other service connections you can have, for example, to Docker OS, Docker Registry, GitHub, all of those things. You just connect to Azure Classic, next, and you select, you can have your credentials, so username and password. I wouldn't use that because that's not safe really. So use certificate based, Azure Cloud, we've already selected that. Okay, so when you put in your subscription ID and your subscription name, it doesn't really highlight there, but if you look at subscription name for the publish settings, you can actually, there's a link there, but it doesn't show on mine. If you click this link, this will open up your Azure Cloud for you for that specific account that you've selected there. And you can select your account and then validate and download. I'm not going to do this now. Inside there is the certificate. Everything inside the quotes, you need to copy and paste that into this managed certificate. Everything inside the quotes only, nothing else, just inside the quotes. You copy and paste that inside here, verify, you create a service connection name, you name it something, and then you verify and save. App Services, web app on Windows, that's what we want to do. And the app services that we created on Azure will then automatically, if you have your, if you created it and followed my instructions, then it will come up here if it's connected to that Azure account. And that's basically all you add up, in this deployment, and you save. Just use the default folder that comes up and click OK. And now you can immediately just go click and create a release. And that's what we want to do. We want to create a release, and we call it staging. And this is the version that's going to be deployed that we have. You can put on some description or just click create. That will create a release for you. Release 1. If you click here on release 1, the deployment hasn't completed yet. You can automate this, but let's just do this manually and say, okay, click on deploy. So staging environment, you can do this automatically, or you can do this manually. Let's do this manually for now. Just click deploy, and you can put in some comments here. New deploy. Deploy. If you click on the in progress here, you can see the logs running. So this will now, hopefully, if everything is set up correctly, deploy to your app services on Azure. So it says successfully deployed. So that's all green, all good. Now let's go to our web API here. I'm just going to just click reset on my dashboard. This is my weather API service. And as I said earlier, this will be a URL. Now you can just click on this. We'll open it up. It probably won't work. You need to specify your endpoint, which is weather forecast, and click on that. Did I spell it correctly? Weather with a R, forecast, and there is your values returning from your API, and that's running in Azure. So this is the Azure part of it. The next video will be about the Docker part of it. Let's deploy then to Docker. And I also want to create a Linux version of this in a follow-up video. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. And if you haven't shared my video, and also I'm going to put up a link to my Twitter account. I created a new Twitter account a little while ago, so I don't have a lot of followers there. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, I might post some tips on there in a later stage. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. This is my Twitter account. I'll put it up on the screen. Thanks for watching. See you next time.